Hey everybody, welcome to Module 6, Online Assessment and Evaluation. Okay, the first general comment before we dive in I want to make is one you're really going to like again, and that is that you have 2 weeks to complete Module 6. It's because at this point in the class we've found that it's good to have a little wiggle room and breathing space. And as you know, there have been vacations around now as well, so it's important to give that time so that taking this class isn't so stressful. So for this one, make sure you read your textbook content this first week, and then also make your initial discussion post by this coming Thursday. You won't have anything else due though until the end of the second week. So you have a little time to work on your portfolio assignment, your reply posts, and your reflection. The other comment, we are getting, most of the time, we are getting a notice from you when you have a late submission of an assignment or something that you're fixing to get a better score. But occasionally we're not getting enough information. So just a quick reminder to please give us the assignment numbers when you are submitting late or submitting a fix. We're still getting things like this as messages where you are trying to send us a message, but it's something like this. I fixed my assignment. I submitted my assignment. Or sometimes I need help, and it's usually sounding pretty desperate. But in that case, we're not getting the assignment number or a good time to contact you. So please know that we would love to call you or work with you on an online screen sharing session if needed, but we need to have a couple ideas of times that would be good to reach you and also what it is you need help on. First of all, Module 6 has the usual 3 assignments. This time the module is about formative and summative assessment and how that looks in a blended or online learning environment. So your discussion post is going to have you read a couple of documents. One will talk about how Web 2.0 tools do or don't affect online assessment or assessment, formative assessment specifically. And then you'll read another one that will give you a lot of ideas of where they do fit in, these 2.0 tools, in the formative assessment process. In your reading, you're going to learn about something called the Tuttle's stages for formative assessment and monitoring. Pay close attention to that. That's going to play into this discussion. It's going to play into the portfolio project, and it's going to play into your reflection as well. So make sure you do catch that, and make sure when you're responding to all of the assignments that you make connections with Tuttle's stages. Okay, let's dive in and look specifically at the assignment prompts. Okay, here's Module 6 in PowerSchool. On the right, you could see, as I already described, that you have 2 weeks to complete Module 6, with the final assignments not due until April 8th. Over here on the left, you see your usual parts. Make sure you read your textbook prior to your discussion posting on Thursday. So you do have some work to do this week, just not as much. So please read the textbook, watch the videos in the textbook, and then put in your initial prompt, your initial post, for your discussion by Thursday. Okay, here is that discussion post prompt. So what you're going to do, you're going to read 2 things. You're going to read a blog post entitled Web 2.0 use may not be formative assessment, and it's written by Harry Tuttle, and you're also going to be learning about Tuttle stages throughout the textbook work here in this module. Pay close attention to his feedback stages. Then you're going to read Formative Assessment and Monitoring Student Process from the Catholic Schools of the Archdiocese of Milwaukee. And what they've done is they've given their teaching staff, and they post it online, which makes it very useful to us, some good information about how Tuttle stages for formative assessment and monitoring work with EdTech tools. And they have broken down the stages quite well and have suggested some very current Web 2.0 tools you might consider using for various stages. I think you're going to enjoy reading both of these. And then for your post itself, you're going to identify one single Web 2.0 tool that you could use for formative assessment to evaluate student learning, and describe how you would use it to meet learning objectives. Please be sure to reference the relevant Tuttle's stages, and you can see the diagram below showing the Tuttle's stages of formative assessment to enhance your response. Continuing on. Now this is a pretty big project here. You're going to create an assessment plan. And your assessment plan is going to be very specifically naming and describing a unit of instruction. And you'll need to identify the audience, and you can see these here, the audience, the objectives that you're going to be assessing, the standards from the Common Core that you're assessing, and the activities that are going to be used to teach the lesson. Next, that's part one. You're going to come up in part two with the actual formative assessment plan. And that green title there should really say the formative assessment plan. And then you could see part three is the summative assessment plan. So you're going to identify at least 3 formative assessments, considering the tools that you've read about on pages 2 and 3 in the textbook. And you're going to identify a specific Web 2.0 tool that you would utilize for each assessment, and then explain how you would measure progress toward mastery. That's one part of part 2, and you're going to do that 3 times. And then secondly, you're going to provide feedback methods for each assessment. So how you would do your assessment, how you would provide feedback, and you would use 3 different methods of feedback and explain what you expect the students to do with the feedback you give them. This will all make a lot of sense once you've read the textbook. So, and then make sure as you're doing all of this that you're specifically referring to each feedback method using one of Tuttle's stages, 1 or more, but it's probably going to be very, very finite and defined what you're going to, as far as Tuttle stages for each method. Lastly, you're going to provide for your assessment plan the summative assessment you'll do for that unit. So you're going to design a rubric, you're going to create a project for summative assessment, and then you're going to design a rubric to measure the success by which the students attain their learning objectives. And the rubric should have at least 3 levels and 3 or more criteria to evaluate the specific activities found in the project. And then lastly, for the summative assessment only, you're going to include a student work example or sample. Now, this could be actual student work, or you can create something to demonstrate what you would want the student sample or the student work to look like for the summative assessment. Either is okay. Just make sure that if you use a real work sample of a real student, please remove or change their name so nothing identifying is there, because this is going to also be included in your portfolio online later. So, and then lastly, down here at the bottom, we're providing you with links to sample assessment plans, one for a typical secondary school, just to show you what an assessment plan would look like, including a student sample for that unit summative assessment. And then also, for those of you who don't work with students at all, you can do all of this as you would do it for adult professional development, and created a summative assessment plan for that and an example of student work to show the summative assessment. So these samples here are going to be very useful. Let me just show you one. So I'm going to click on the high school assessment plan so you get an idea of what you'll be submitting. They did this in a Google Doc. You could also do this in a Microsoft Word online document as well. As you can see, part 1 is here at the top. They didn't label it part 1, but I can see that all the elements are here: audience, objectives, and standards. Then for the formative assessment part of the unit, he or she has defined 3 formative assessments, and as you look at each one of those, you can see they're using different Web 2.0 tools. First one, they're using Curriculate. Another one, they're using Video Notes. And lastly, they are using Google Draw. So each of those will qualify, but anything, remember, that allows the student to create and store their work online, create and store, that would be a Web 2.0 tool. And then they've listed their summative assessment independently. They've given the instructions here basically. But as you go down the line here, you're going to see more. Here's formative assessment 1. Here are the Tuttle stages for formative assessment 1. Here's formative assessment 2, including the Tuttle stages for formative assessment 2. Here's formative assessment 3 with Tuttle stages, and this is the Google document that goes with that. Here's the summative assessment. Here's the rubric for the summative assessment. Here's the student sample work, which in this case was an essay. So you could see that this pretty well matches the 3-part assessment plan that's in the instructions. I'm not going to look at the other one at this point. We're going to go down and look at the reflection for a moment, and then we're going to wind up. Okay, so for your reflection for Module 6, you're going to be in number 1, part of the prompt, reflecting on formative and summative assessments in online and blended environments. And what things do you now need to start considering that maybe you weren't considering before? And then secondly, just like in every other module, you're going to take either the blended teacher competencies from INACOL or the INACOL Standards for Quality Online Teaching. And it has to be the same as what you've used in the previous module. So don't suddenly switch to blended when you've been doing online or vice versa. And you're going to reflect on what has been strengthened in your skills as far as those standards go by the learning you've done in Module 6 about formative and summative assessment. So with that, we're going to stop and move on to the close here. So if you have any questions, as always, please feel free to reach out to either myself or to Sarah. And with that, just encourage you to enjoy your 2 weeks on Module 6 and whatever fun stuff you've got going on with your vacations, etc., and enjoy the learning. Bye-bye.